everyone, RogueGold here, and today we've got to talk about this. So a little while back I made this video, which maybe some of you saw, maybe you didn't. I'll link it in the top corner and in the description in case you want to check it out. In it, I talked about some of the upcoming titles that I felt had a chance to be competition to The Division. Now, many of you took that to be me dogging on Division, which really wasn't the case at all. I think it's pretty obvious that I have a huge passion and care for this franchise, but I'm also a fan of gaming in general, and Division has led me to finding a very specific genre that I tend to enjoy a lot, that being third-person shooters with RPG and looter elements. Therefore, the two of the games I highlighted in that video interest me, and part of the reason why I highlighted them as potential competition for Div is that I think Division has had relatively little competition ever since it released in 2016, again, specifically in terms of third-person shooters with RPG and looter elements. So, all of that is to say, the algorithm ended up carrying that video to far wider audiences than I anticipated, which is great. I always love being able to incorporate more people into the conversation, but inevitably that led to a lot of Division. Division's been dead for years, dude. These games are already way better than it, and they're not even out yet, which, you know, you always expect to see stuff like that. However, one of the games I spotlighted in that video, the first Descendant, just recently had its first public beta, and I have some thoughts that I want to share, along with tying that into and highlighting some of the comments that you all left on that video last time, talking about what some of Division's greatest strengths are, and what has allowed it to continue being so popular and successful more than 6 years after the first game launched, which, yes, sorry, Division is dead-ers. A dead game doesn't get a sequel, 2 spin-offs, novels, and a feature film. Just how it works. So, alright, enough of me blabbering, let's get right into it. As I mentioned, the first Descendant. It's an upcoming third-person looter shooter that, from the trailers themselves, is definitely going to be much more fantasy and sci-fi than Division is, which is fine, that's great. I greatly enjoy Destiny and other franchises that go that route. We hadn't yet gotten any gameplay though, but we now do, thanks to that recent public beta that the game had on Steam. Now, fair warning, I did not play in this beta myself, unless it's for like a Division PTS or something like that, you'll find me hard-pressed to find a good reason to boot up my PC rig, but in lieu of that, I have gone through and watched a lot of gameplay that people have streamed and uploaded to YouTube. So throughout this section and, during the video, I'm just going to use small snippets of gameplay to just visualize what I'm talking about. I certainly don't want to just entirely rip someone else's gameplay though, but I will leave links in the description to any and all sources I end up using. So a couple of things stood out to me upon watching this gameplay. Firstly, the world is gorgeous. Of that, there's no doubt. I want to say this thing is made on Unreal 5, so it's, not much of a surprise that the visuals are stunning. Additionally, the gameplay looks snappy and fun. There's lots of things and ways to enhance your speed. You've got an inherent grappling hook ability. That looks like a lot of fun. But guess what I noticed almost instantly? And again, I haven't played myself. This also isn't meant to degrade the gamer developers in any way. It's just an observation. This is, to me, a very clear case where the world and gameplay were built separately. And by that I mean, the world looks stunning, without question. There's a lot of cool locations, there's big environmental variety, that's all great. And like I said, the gameplay looks snappy, it looks fun. But when I watch these people playing, the character looks like they're just moving over top a pretty layer, as opposed to traversing this immersive environment. Does that make sense? And to loop this back to Division, let me do a side-by-side of just the simple open world traversal. In the first Descendant, it looks fast, fun, and the world looks great while you go by. In Division 2, I get those same elements, but I also feel like I'm actually in this world that I'm interacting with. And this is achieved through a variety of ways. The detail Massive puts into the world is unparalleled. I think we all know that. So the art style aids the immersion. The environmental storytelling does too, just looking around and seeing what stories you can find unfold on the streets. And also the gameplay and traversal. You're still swift and nimble, but you do have to vault over stuff, skirt around debris, climb up things. Now, some of that is by design of a cover-based shooter versus a more aggressive, action-oriented setup for sure, but I'm guessing a lot of you can see what I'm talking about when I say that Division just feels more real. It feels more connected. And it feels like the developer made every aspect of it with the others in mind. How do we make the world serve the gameplay? And how do we make the gameplay serve the world? Whereas the first Descendant, while I'm sure it's fun to play, I have no doubt of that, and it looks gorgeous, but the character and world just don't seem to share that same connection. And this was something that came up repeatedly in the comments of that last video I did, is a lot of people said it's the realism and the immersion Division offers that makes it so special to them. And you're absolutely right, and I agree, that's one of Division's greatest strengths. The developers clearly put in so much care and passion to bring the world to life as much as they did, and that always has and will always continue to be, part of what makes the Division feel so awesome to play. Beyond that one example, though, looking back at the first Descendant's gameplay, like I said, it all looks great. I don't look at any part of it and say, well, that looks bad or not fun. Not at all. But at the same time, I just notice things that don't look inspired or as unique, one of those being the UI. I mean, how basic can you get? And I know some won't, care about this at all, but like the text font on the screen and the menus looks pretty generic. The ability slots at the bottom look pretty generic. The health bar, the mini map, the overall mega map, I mean, just doesn't even hold a candle compared to how fluid and immersive Divisions is. And the one part I really do like, I will say, is the weapon selection grid at the bottom right. I think that looks pretty dope, so credit where it's due. But again, just to go back to Div 2, so many of these things just don't feel important or noticeable to us after playing something for so many years. But just the level of uniqueness and integration into this UI, the HUD totally unique and always tracking with you, the way objective stuff, XP bars, etc. always shifts and changes sizes depending on the notifications you're getting or whatever. Every element of the core Division experience, again, feels designed in tandem with and while keeping in mind every other aspect of the game. How does the UI serve the gameplay, the world, etc.? Whereas with the first Descendant, nothing wrong with it, but it just looks to me like pretty layers stacked atop one another to make an interface, to make a game. Nothing looks like it was made to suit the other or to add to the immersion. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I'm sure very little people are going to care, but it just reminds me of how much passion and love really went into making Division feel as special as it is. And it's stuff like this that really just reminds me of what Division's greatest strengths really are. So there you go, people, from the last video saying I was putting those other games above Division. I was not. I was just saying I was interested to see how they were going to shape up, given they're very similar to Division in terms of genre. And now that we've gotten our first look at the first Descendant, I totally still want to try the game out. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it's going to be plenty of fun to play, but I've seen what I needed to see, if you know what I mean. And like I've said in the comments to many people before, sometimes it does take you stepping back and experiencing other things, taking a break from your normal stuff to fully appreciate what you have. Stuff like the world detail, stuff like the UI integration and small components. You often lose sight of those things when you're so engrossed in the total experience, but when you step back and you look at what the competitors offer, sometimes you just go, oh yeah, we've got it pretty good over here. The grass isn't always greener. So there you have it, folks. That's my little breakdown, deep dive, and comparison of the first Descendant gameplay and beta, and a highlight of what Division's greatest strengths are. Really just wanted to do a follow-up to that previous video because some things got left unsaid, so I really hope this does clear everything up. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Let me know your thoughts about everything we discussed here. How are you feeling about the first Descendant? Did you play it? Did you not? What are you thinking after seeing that gameplay? And how do you think it compares to Division? I think it's hard to say any one game is definitively better than others, well, at least in certain cases, because games are so subjective. There's so many individual factors. So yeah, let me know what you're thinking. As always, I will be incredibly curious to read through all of your thoughts, and that is just about going to wrap things up for me today, everybody. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.